Worked for 31 years as a registered nurse. 31 years of 12-hour shifts, of holding strangers' hands while they took their last breath, of coming home with aching feet and a full heart. I raised my son in a small house in Dayton, Ohio, just the two of us after his father passed. I paid off that house in 2019. Every beam, every tile, every inch of that kitchen, mine. So when I came home one Thursday evening in February and found a padlock on my laundry room door, I stood in the hallway for a very long time. I just looked at it, a silver combination padlock, the kind you buy at Home Depot for $12, hanging on the door to my own laundry room. I set my purse down on the kitchen counter. I poured myself a glass of water. I stood at the window and watched the neighbor's dog run circles in the backyard next door. And I thought, how did we get here? My son's name is Derek. He's 36 years old, 6 feet tall, and has my late husband's eyes, kind and a little distant all at once. I love him more than I have words for. That has never changed. I want to be clear about that, because what comes next might make it seem otherwise. Derek married his wife Tammy 4 years ago. I attended the wedding. I wore a blue dress and I danced. I liked Tammy well enough in the beginning. She was sharp, funny in a dry way, and she clearly made my son happy. The trouble started gradually, the way most trouble does. Derek lost his job in the spring of 2023. The marketing firm he worked for downsized, and he was part of the second round of layoffs. He called me on a Sunday afternoon. Voice tight, the way it gets when he's embarrassed. He asked if he and Tammy could stay with me for a few months while they got back on their feet. I said yes without hesitating. Of course I did. He's my child. They moved in on a Saturday in April. 2 cars, a moving truck, and 3 of Tammy's houseplants that she was very particular about. I had cleared out the guest room, put fresh sheets on the bed, bought a second coffee maker, because I knew Tammy liked a specific brand of pods that I didn't use. I told them, stay as long as you need. We'll figure out the rest. What I didn't understand then was that figuring out the rest meant something very different to Tammy than it did to me. The first few weeks were fine, quiet. Derek spent his days applying for jobs. Tammy worked remotely part-time doing something with social media accounts for small businesses. They cooked dinner twice a week. Tammy reorganized the spice cabinet one afternoon, which I noticed but didn't comment on. It was a small thing. Then in June, she asked if she could rearrange the living room furniture. I just think the couch faces the wrong way, she said. You can't really see the TV properly. I had sat on that couch watching television for 11 years. I could see the TV just fine. But I smiled and said she could try it. She moved everything. Bought 2 throw pillows I didn't ask for, put them on the receipt she left on the kitchen counter and said, I figured we could split it. It's for the common space. I paid for the throw pillows. In August, she asked if her friend could come over for a little get-together. 10 people. Could I maybe make myself scarce that evening? I went to my neighbor Connie's house for dinner that night. It was a Friday. My house. I went to my neighbor's house so my daughter-in-law could entertain. I want to be honest. I told myself each of these things was small. Because each one was, technically. And Derek was still unemployed, and I could see the stress wearing on both of them. And I am not the kind of person who kicks someone when they're down. I'm also not the kind of person who talks a lot when I'm processing something. I get quiet. I observe. I wait. I was waiting. Derek found a new job in September, an operations manager position at a logistics company in Columbus. It paid less than his previous job, but it was steady. I was relieved. I thought this would be the turning point, that things would begin to settle back into some kind of natural order. Instead, Tammy stopped working entirely. She said she was reevaluating her career path. I didn't ask questions. I set the table for 3 every evening and I kept my thoughts to myself. By October, I noticed she had moved her skincare products into my master bathroom. Not the guest bathroom. Mine. I found them one morning lined up along the edge of my sink. 6 or 7 bottles and jars, a jade roller, a small diffuser. When I mentioned it gently, she said she preferred the light in that bathroom. Better for her skin. I moved the products back to the guest bathroom. When I came home the next evening, they were back on my sink. I moved them again. They came back again. I stopped moving them after that. Not because I had given up. I was still waiting. But I had started writing things down in a small notebook I kept in my nightstand, dates, details, things that were said. 31 years as a nurse taught me documentation matters. November brought Thanksgiving, which Tammy decided she would host. In my house. She sent a group text to Derek's family, his aunt, 2 cousins, their children, with a message that read, hosting Thanksgiving at our place this year. Come hungry. Our place. I read that text 3 times. I did not say anything at Thanksgiving dinner. I brought the sweet potato casserole, which is a dish I've made every year since 1987. I sat at my own dining room table and I smiled, and I passed the rolls and I answered questions about my garden. I watched Tammy accept compliments on the centerpiece she had ordered from an Etsy shop and put on my credit card without asking. I found the charge later that week, $47. That was the first time I called my attorney. His name is Mr. Hofstetter. I've used him for estate planning for years. I didn't have a clear picture yet of what I needed, but I told him what was happening. He listened carefully. At the end of the call, he said, "Margaret, start writing everything down." I told him I already was. The laundry room padlock appeared on a Thursday in February. I had come home from a follow-up appointment at my doctor's office. Just routine blood work, nothing alarming. I changed into comfortable clothes, gathered my sheets to wash, walked to the laundry room, and found the door locked. I stood there with my arms full of sheets. Tammy came out of the kitchen. She had a mug of tea and she looked completely unbothered. "Oh, that," she said. "I had to put a lock on it. I have some delicate things soaking in the sink in there and I didn't want them disturbed." I looked at her. "It's my laundry room," I said. I know, she said. "I'll open it up in a couple of days when the stuff is done." "Tammy," I said, "that is my washing machine. I need to do laundry." She tilted her head slightly the way a person does when they are deciding whether to be patient with you. "Can't you use the laundromat down the street? Just this once?" I want to tell you what I felt in that moment. Because it wasn't rage, it wasn't tears. It was something much quieter and much more certain. It was the feeling of a decision being made. I looked at that padlock. I looked at her. And I smiled. "Sure," I said. "I'll figure something out." And I went to my bedroom, closed the door, and called Mr. Hofstetter. That weekend, Derek took Tammy to Cincinnati for her birthday. They left Friday afternoon and weren't coming back until Sunday evening. On Saturday morning, I called a locksmith. He arrived in 40 minutes, a young man named Pete who wore a grey hoodie and asked no questions beyond the basics. He had the padlock off in under 4 minutes. I thanked him, tipped him in cash, and put the padlock in a paper bag on the kitchen counter. Then I sat at my kitchen table with a cup of coffee and a legal pad and I spent 3 hours writing. Not a note, not a passive-aggressive sticky, a letter. 3 full pages, handwritten in my clearest penmanship, the kind of handwriting I use when I'm charting patient information. Precise, calm, permanent. I wrote about the throw pillows and the credit card charges. I wrote about Thanksgiving. I wrote about my bathroom. I wrote about being asked to leave my own home on a Friday night. I wrote about 31 years of working, 22 years of mortgage payments, and the deed to this house that has my name on it and my name alone. And at the end, I wrote this: "You are welcome in my home as a guest, but this is my home. The laundry room will not be locked again. The common spaces will not be rearranged without my permission. My credit card will not be used without my explicit consent. I am extending this clarity to you now in writing, because I want there to be no confusion going forward. If these terms are not agreeable to you, I am prepared to discuss a formal move-out timeline. I wish you both well regardless of what you decide." Adele, I folded the letter into 3 parts. I placed it on top of the padlock in the paper bag on the kitchen counter. Then I went to Connie's house for lunch, and I didn't think about it again until Sunday night. I heard them come in around 8 o'clock. I was in my bedroom reading. I heard Tammy's voice first, something cheerful she was saying to Derek about the hotel they'd stayed in. I heard the sound of bags being set down. Then silence. A longer silence. Then her voice again, different. Lower. I couldn't make out the words. I kept reading. About 20 minutes later, Derek knocked on my bedroom door. "Mom?" he said. "Can I come in?" "Of course," I said. He sat on the edge of the bed. He had the letter in his hand, all 3 pages. He looked like he'd been holding something heavy for a while and hadn't put it down yet. "Mom," he said, "I didn't know she put a lock on that door." "I know you didn't," I said. "I'm sorry." I looked at him for a moment. My son, my boy with his father's eyes. "I know you are," I said. "But Derek, you've been here for almost a year. You've seen things. I need you to see them." He was quiet. He looked down at the letter. "She's been going through a hard time," he started. "So have I said. "And this is my house." He didn't say anything to that. But he didn't argue either. The next morning, a Monday, Tammy came into the kitchen while I was making oatmeal. She looked like she hadn't slept particularly well. She stood near the refrigerator, and she said my name. And when I turned around, her expression was not the tilted head, unbothered look I'd become accustomed to. She looked Not ashamed. Exactly. But uncertain. Like someone who had been operating on an assumption that had just been quietly corrected. I want to apologize, she said. The lock was a bad idea. I should have talked to you first. Yes, I said. You should have. I've just been really stressed, Sammy, I said not unkindly. I understand stress. I've managed a cardiology floor at 2 in the morning with 3 nurses short. I understand stress. What I don't understand is being treated like a guest in my own home. She was quiet. I don't want things to be like this, she said. Neither do I said, and I don't mean it, but I need them to be different. She nodded. Her eyes were wet. I handed her a paper towel because I didn't have tissues at the kitchen counter, and she actually laughed a little. Just a small exhale, and I thought, maybe this is the moment. Things were different for about 3 weeks. She asked before using my car. She paid me back for the Etsy centerpiece. She moved her skincare out of my bathroom. She started cooking dinner twice a week again, and she always made enough for 3. I let myself feel cautiously optimistic. Cautiously because I am a nurse, and optimism without evidence is not something I allow myself. The evidence arrived on a Thursday in March. I got a call from my bank, a fraud alert. Someone had used my Visa to make a purchase at a furniture website. $1,240. A bed frame for the guest room, Derek's and Temmie's room. I didn't confront her that afternoon. I went to the bank, disputed the charge, and I called Mr. Hofstetter. This time I had a very clear idea of what I needed. I want them to have a formal lease, I said. Market rate for this area, month to month, terminable with 30 days notice by either party. Mr. Hofstetter was quiet for a moment. That's quite a shift, he said. Yes, I said. It is. He drew up the lease within the week. I sat Derek down by himself on a Saturday morning without Tammy present, and I slid it across the kitchen table. Mom, he said, looking at it. What is this? It's a lease, I said. Market rate for a 2-bedroom in this zip code is $1,600 a month. I'm asking for $800 half because you're my son, month to month. 30 days notice on either side. He stared at the pages. If you're comfortable here and want to stay, this is how we do it, I said. If that doesn't work, I'll need 30 days to make other arrangements, and so will you. She's going to. This is between you and me, I said. You're my son. You're the one who made the decision to move in here. I need you to be the one who decides what comes next. He picked up the lease. He read it all the way through. He asked 2 questions. Whether utilities were included? Yes. And whether the 30 days applied to me too if I wanted them to leave? Yes, I said. Though the house is mine, I would give him the same courtesy I'm asking for. He signed it on a Tuesday. Tammy did not sign it. She was furious in the way some people get furious when a situation that has been very comfortable for them suddenly has parameters. She said I was treating them like tenants, not family. She said it was humiliating. You are tenants, I said quietly. And you are also family. Those 2 things can both be true. She went to bed without dinner that night. The following month was hard. I won't pretend otherwise. Meals were awkward. Derek was caught between 2 people he loved, and I could see it wearing on him. Tammy spoke to me as little as possible. She started spending a lot of time at her sister's house on the weekends. In May, Derek came to me. He sat down at the kitchen table, same table, different conversation. We've been looking at apartments, he said. Okay, I said. There's one in Kettering we both like. 2-bedroom, 2nd floor. $1,500 a month. That sounds like a solid place, I said. Mom. He looked at me. I'm sorry. For all of it. I should have. I saw things happening and you were trying to keep the peace, I said. I let her treat you badly in your own home. Yes, I said, you did. It was the most honest thing I could say. And he deserved the honesty more than he deserved me, softening it. I'm sorry, he said again. I know, I said. I love you. That hasn't changed. It won't. He moved out on the 1st of June. I helped them carry boxes. I gave Tammy a hug at the door. Brief, genuine. The kind of hug that doesn't pretend things are fine but acknowledges that people are complicated and love is too. She didn't say much, but she didn't pull away. The morning after they left, I woke up at 6:30, which is when I've woken up for 31 years. I made oatmeal. I sat at my kitchen table. I looked at the laundry room door, no padlock, just the plain white door it had always been. I washed my sheets that morning in my own washing machine. I folded them on my own dining room table. I put them on my own bed. My neighbor Connie came by in the afternoon and we sat on the back porch and drank iced tea, and she asked how I was feeling. Lighter, I said, and I meant it without any performance or drama, just the plain, clean truth of a word that fit the feeling exactly. She nodded. What about Derek? She asked. He's okay, I said. We talked last week. He's settling in. I think Tammy and I will find our footing eventually. Or we won't. But that's not mine to control. Connie swirled the ice in her glass. You were patient a long time. Maybe too patient, I said. Or maybe just patient enough, she said. I thought about that. I'm still thinking about it. I want to say something to anyone who might be listening to this and recognizing their own life in any part of it. To any woman, any person, who has spent a lifetime taking care of others, who built something steady and solid with their own hands, their own years, their own sacrifice, and then found themselves feeling small inside the very walls they own. Your kindness is not the same as your consent. Your patience is not the same as permission. You are allowed to write the letter. You are allowed to call the attorney. You are allowed to slide the lease across the table and say, this is how it will be, because this is my home. You don't have to raise your voice. You don't have to be unkind. You can do all of it the way I did. Quietly, clearly, with documentation and a cup of coffee and 31 years of knowing that staying calm in a crisis is the most powerful thing a person can do. I am 63 years old. I live alone in the house I own, in the city I chose, with my laundry room door unlocked and my bathroom counter clear, and my kitchen exactly the way I like it. I am not bitter. I am not lonely. I am, at long last, completely at home. I've thought a lot about what made Tammy believe she could put a lock on a door that wasn't hers, and the honest answer, the one I had to sit with for a long time, is that I let it get that far, not because I was weak, but because I confused kindness with accommodation and accommodation with permission. Every time I said nothing, I was quietly teaching her that silence meant yes. That's the part nobody talks about. We talk about the people who take too much. We don't talk as much about the moments when we gave more than we should have and called it love. I don't regret opening my home to Derek. I would do it again. What I do differently is draw the line earlier, not with anger, not with ultimatums shouted across a dinner table, but with the same calm, clear voice I used in 31 years of nursing. The voice that says, here is what is happening, here is what needs to change, here is how we move forward. I had that voice the whole time. I just stopped using it inside my own house. There's a kind of quiet courage that doesn't get celebrated much. It's not the courage of confrontation. It's the courage of writing 3 pages by hand and leaving them on the counter without knowing what comes next. It's signing your name at the bottom of a letter and meaning every word. It's sliding a lease across a kitchen table to your own son and not apologizing for it. That kind of courage is built slowly over a lifetime of making decisions under pressure. And I think it is one of the most underestimated things a person can develop. What happened with Tammy was not a mystery. She tested every boundary she found until she found one that held. The padlock was not the beginning, it was just the moment the pattern became impossible to ignore. And my letter was not revenge. It was cause-meeting effect in the plainest possible way. You lock a door in my house, I remove the lock and explain, in writing, exactly why that will not happen again. That's not drama. That's just consequence, delivered without cruelty. Derek is doing well. We talk on Sundays. Things between him and Tammy have settled. They are figuring out their life in their own space the way they should have been doing all along. I think being responsible for their own rent has been good for both of them in ways they wouldn't admit yet. That's fine. Truth doesn't need to be acknowledged to be true. And me. I wake up in my house, I make my oatmeal, I do my laundry on whatever day I feel like. I had coffee with Connie last Tuesday on the back porch, and we laughed until my side hurt about something completely unrelated to any of this. My bathroom counter has exactly 2 things on it. The house smells like the candle I've burned for 20 years. I am 63 years old, and I have finally learned that protecting what you build is not selfishness, it is self-respect. And self-respect, I have come to believe, is not something you find. It is something you practice. One honest conversation, one clear letter, one firmly removed padlock at a time.